And now I'd like to invite Mr. Abdumajeed AlBalushi, Managing Partner of Paradigms Consulting, on the topic of monetizing experience, data to build competitive advantage.
Assalamu alaikum. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation. And I think some of you, or most of you, by now, tried or in the process of trying the new ChatGPT. Anybody tried that one? So ChatGPT is the latest AI chatbot, which is highly sophisticated, and it's the most, as per the New York Times, is the most sophisticated or advanced AI released to the public. And so it's very conversational. So it makes Siri-like obsolete. And so you can have a conversation with it right away. It's being built on very rich AI. So I thought, okay, let me try it. And the first question is, can a consultant become a billionaire? So this is my first question to it. And ironically, the answer was also a consultant's type of answer. So the answer started with, it depends. And this is what we always tell people, you know, as consultants. I think the two presentations today, or speeches, really talked into very specific areas of either its data centers or the AI and data. And I think the agreement across the board, technology is there. So it's not a matter of technology, so it's a matter of application. And I'll maybe focus on different area or very specific area into data, which is what we call now experience data. So looking into, we've been in doing this for the past 5 years, and we've been collecting data across the region. So we work in Oman, Saudi, UAE, Qatar, and Kuwait, not much in Bahrain. But these are the main countries that we work in. And the whole idea is how we can monetize data. How we can monetize data. So if we have some data, can we monetize it? Or at least can we utilize the data in order to build a competitive advantage for that organization? And I think the previous presentation stated very well the key challenge always with data. So you spend most of your time actually cleansing and cleaning data rather than even testing. And that's why we try to take different sort of direction with combining what we call operation data. So any historic data that you have in place, whether it's a process, whether it's information, records, and so on, and combine it with what we call experience data. So what is experience data? Experience data simply, it's the interaction, or experience is the interaction with anything. So how we interact with organization, with our customers, with our products, with our brand, with our systems, with our employees, and so on. So this is the experience. Now, in order to improve our data quality without comprising on the cost of the project, or without comprising on the number of or the time itself required, companies like Qualtrics, I don't know if you heard about it. So Qualtrics is one of the leading companies into experience data. And what positioned Qualtrics very well, especially back in end of 2018, 2019, when SAP decided to acquire Qualtrics for $8 billion. Although Qualtrics were supposed actually to go public with valuation of only 2.5. And what SAP is doing today is actually changing their way of analytics into more of a Qualtrics way. So they're abandoning a lot of models they have at SAP specifically, and they are adapting the Qualtrics model and combining the operation data with experience data. So what's the difference between operation data and experience data? So here specifically we'll talk about analytics. So using data for analytics, can we predict certain elements in the organization, when it comes to our customers, when it comes to our products, when it comes to our employees. So with the predictive analytics, it's always about being able to put the right sort of algorithm that actually build on certain trends or specific trends in the data that can lead into or improving the way we predict the future. So operation data usually give you the answer of what and how. So what we got and how we got here. So these are the results. This is the data. This is, for example, the optimization of this process, and so on. However, operation data doesn't answer the question why we get this type of data, not anything else. So why we are here. And when it comes to analytics, it's very important to understand the why. Because if we cannot understand the why, we will not be able actually to predict. Because these are the changing elements into the environment. So if we can incorporate the changing elements in the environment into the algorithm itself, it will always lead into misjudgment. This is the Qualtrics model in a human experience. So what they say, that actually any user, and I would like also to thank my colleague in the previous presentation on emphasizing in people, because it's everything. So, and this is the irony around, we are talking about big data, AI, and all of a sudden people are the most important thing in order to do actually, if we want to get there. And this is, so if you look into the chat GPT, how they actually came into where they are today, which is the most sophisticated AI conversational solution in the whole world. Within 1 week, they have more than 1 million subscribers. Just 1 week. So they have more than 1 million subscribers. But also when you go into, okay, how they get to this point of sophistication, what they have done is, especially with machine learning, so actually they deployed people in order to build both scenarios. So what is the question and what would be the right answer for it? And by building all of this data and do much, ton of machine learning, they manage actually to reach where they are today. So I urge all of you to go and try it out. Just Google ChatGPT, download the app, or just register on their website and start conversation. And now it's available for free. So for early adopters in the room, it's a great opportunity to actually try that out. The human experience is now how we actually interact as a human, how we interact with everything around us, specifically in the organization. And this is our cup of tea. So we laser focus on the organization. So whether it's companies, it's the government, any organization that actually looking into utilizing their data in order to work on some or support their decision making using some analytics. And looking into this, so it's always start with expectations and experience. So what is our expectations from this process? Because when you go as data scientists and start to evaluate, it's the business perspective that matters. It's not the data itself. So can business tolerate this? If yes, then voila, nothing needs to be done. So you don't need actually to go and waste your time in order to optimize something or use the data in order to come with algorithms that actually can optimize the process in a way that doesn't matter to the business. So now how we can combine the human experience with that? So if I do this process, what matters to me as a human? Is it the speed? So I want actually this process to be much faster. Is it the quality of the data, of the outcome? Is it the way I interact, what we call specifically now the digital experience? So what is my digital experience? So so for example, when you compare, especially here they are using, whom you are using the government services. When you compare your experience with ROP, Royal Police of Oman, and for example, with Ministry of Housing. It's a different experience, right? I see some smiles around the room. It's a different experience. And the whole idea behind it is the digital experience. So are we actually designing from the end user or the customer perspective, or actually, oh no, we are designing from IT perspective. So what makes sense for us, we'll do it. So when you go and log into the Ministry of Housing, it will ask you to identify yourself before you get into the login screen. But they have the data. So why I should actually identify myself if they know whom am I? So there are extra steps being created in that digital experience doesn't make sense. Compare, for example, when you go to ROP application, it's just straightforward. You log in, it will recognize you right away, why you are here, what exactly. So, and then it comes the analytics. So one of my favorite stories about analytics is with Target stores in the US. So they built a sort of, so they built an analytics based on AI in order to predict whether any of their ladies users are pregnant or not. And so it's based on the experience. So what are usually what they select as a products, how they navigate, what's their sequential sort of browsing and so on. So this is all experience, how they interact with the website. And to a high level of accuracy, they actually manage to predict that if a lady browsing within these age, there is more, the likelihood of that lady or that woman to be pregnant is this much. So I think they reach up to 92% accuracy in their AI algorithm. And so and maybe the story that actually came in the news, that actually they started to send gifts to their loyal customers. So if the AI would predict actually that someone is pregnant, automatically it will notify their customer service and they will send a gift. The surprise with that actually they started to send gifts to people whom at that stage the family that didn't know actually of the pregnancy, and that was a big awkwardness for those ladies, because they haven't even told their spouses or family parents that actually they are pregnant. And so they reached to that point by using experience data. We work with a client here in the region in order to predict the likelihood of resignation. So what is the likelihood of someone that actually might resign in the next 6 months? And so we combine again, the operation data along with experience data. And with operation data, so it's just the normal sort of data about the individuals, the employees, and so on. But we combine that with different type of experiences. So looking into experience, so these are the different type of data, of experience data, that actually we collected throughout that project in order to build an algorithm that actually use machine learning. And we started to teach, so we gathered data of around 15,000 employees who actually unlabeled data, whom resigned from different organizations, in order to reach to a point what was the experience of those just 6 months before they resigned. So how they interacted with different systems, different even policies and procedures. So how many times they visited the HR manual to know their end of service benefit. How many times they, or how they actually rated themselves when it comes to performance management or 360 compared to their peers and supervisor in the organization. So when we run that AI before actually incorporating the experience data, the accuracy was could not reach even 50%. But by incorporating the experience data, we managed actually to elevate the accuracy to 84%. So with likelihood of this person, so 84% of likelihood of this person to resign in the next 6 months. And this is where decision making and prediction helps very much into informing the leaders in the organization, and how organization, not only internally but also externally, how they can actually build in all of this. This is the case study of Omantel. So we've been working with Omantel since 2019 in order to combine the customer experience data. So now let's talk specific into type of experience data. So what we are trying to compare is the customer experience data with employee experience data. So, because at the end of the day, what we are, so for each of these data, we are looking into two things. One is the drivers of the experience. So what actually drives this experience? So that's the customer ecosystem, and this is the employee ecosystem. So how actually, what are those drivers? And the second element for both of them, what is the outcome? So what we expect from the employee experience and from customer experience. And the outcome that we used for the customer experience is specifically the recommendation, the likelihood to recommend, this is specific product or organization to another family member, friend, colleagues, and so on. So now how we take that and reflect it into or align the employee experience in order to sort of sustain and improve that customer experience. These are all source of data. So we looked into the interaction with the business strategy, with value proposition of the organization, with the leadership, with the talent management, work environment, and so on. So how these interactions, so we built surveys, both diagnostics and audits, but also we complement that with 360 surveys. And 360 surveys looking specifically into digital experience, but also looking into individual experience, whether I am a leader, I am an employee, a talent, or I am a customer. So by combining all of this, what we are trying to do, so we've been running these surveys for the past 2 to 3 years, and we reached to a point where we have a good prediction of actually whether we will be able to create the customer experience based on the employee experience that will lead to the customer experience outcome, which is recommending the product or service to another colleague or family member. And so this is specifically where the customer recommendation comes into picture. So this is what we are trying to reach. But also, what we are doing now is can we predict the likelihood of an organization to be able to execute in its strategy? And specifically, we are here working with public sector and those who are trying to align themselves with Oman Vision 2040. So what is the likelihood of this organization to be able to execute their strategy, which is rooted from Oman Vision 2040? And we are in process of data gathering. We are working with different organizations, both at ministry level, but also some of centers and authorities, in order actually to, and we identify them based on their performance. So historically, these units or government entities been successfully able to execute on their strategy compared to those who did not do that. So we are gathering the experience data because operation data is there. You can go and, okay, this is what happens, but okay, what does it mean? So in order to do that, we are also establishing a reference line, so which is more of a benchmark. So what is the range that we need actually as experience we need to create or to be within in order for us to improve the likelihood of this organization to be able to execute. And so these are the different types. So what we have a platform called Sadim. Ironically, it's the Arabic translation of Nebula. So, so with Sadim, what we are doing is we are looking into 3 levels of experience. So what is the business experience or organization experience? We are looking into specifically the digital experience. And mainly this because most of the clients that we are working with, they are very into, as my colleague said, in digital transformation. So they want to actually automate most of their processes. They are looking into the digital experience and how does that translate. And part of that is what we use is the citizen digital experience. So what is my citizen digital experience in this organization? And when we talk about digital experience, we are actually looking for 2 things. One is empowerment. Does the whole digital experience empower the employee in order to do their task and target, job description, whatever is the reference, in more efficient way? The second element, so if we achieve empowerment, then we go into augmented. So can they actually accelerate? So it's not just about, I will go and automate a process, but it's same amount of work. Still the employee has to perform. Now, how we can augment the employee so that the employee actually will be able to do things faster, improve or achieve higher targets with the same level of resources. So if we maintain the same level of resources, and so whether it's information, whether it's decision making, whether it's governance, and so on, can still the employee achieve higher or faster results compared to the old way of doing things? If yes, then that's a digital experience is successful. So the system is working. If it's no, then either the system is not aligned actually in order to produce this. So we are just, instead of digitalize, we digitize. And we are getting nothing out of it. We spend maybe $500,000 on nothing. So, and this is where actually the digital experience also should inform you or help you to make decisions around the technology. So what system we should bring to the organization? Does this system work? How we can, so even if it's giving me the results today, but actually can this be more of an augmentation to our employees? And then the last thing is, and this is where the prediction analytics that actually happens. So one is, okay, does this strategy work? If we are adapting a strategy, does it work for the organization? If we are doing digital transformation, is this approach, because there is 100 ways to skin a cat, does this approach work? So are we trying to overdo it? Or actually we are not aligned with the business. The business requirement is in the way, and this is what we actually observed in most of the organization. IT is very obsessed with technology. So, okay, what is the technology that we are bringing in without looking into the value? Okay, so what value actually this technology creating for the business? And this can be captured through the digital experience. And the last thing is the individual experience. So one is talent. Do we actually have a learning organization? Does talent actually here to stay? Or they actually, the likelihood for them to leave? So if they would leave, so if we can predict that actually our talents, whatever we do, they would leave in 3 years. So we redefine loyalty as 3 years. So loyalty is not to work for their career, whole of their career in this organization. And now how to adjust. So what it helps us in order to adjust the way we actually reward our talents. So do we build long-term rewards or short-term rewards? How we manage the performance? Are we looking into performance that actually feed into the career or just the job? So if that person, so we don't bother about potential, because every new job, we will advertise for it. So it will inform a lot the practices that actually the organization are adapting when it comes specifically into employee experience. So, in a nutshell, experience data gives you the answer of why. Why is this happening? And my favorite sort of question to ask, does it matter? So instead of just saving time and resources, does it matter? So if this is happening, do we need really to go and improve it? Or we focus where is the most value can be created for the organization, the people, the customers, the product, the service, and so on. Thank you very much.
Mr. Abdumajeed, you have mentioned about the citizen digital, and what you have tried is to test the understanding and the knowledge of the citizen about the digital. Did you try also to test and find out the ownership challenge in this point of view? So, because you are trying to embed something, you don't know if these guys, they are really interested in that one, in this one, they have the ownership of it, if they are really convinced to accept these type of change. And the second question, is it only about the digitization, or also you are going further to first check the process itself, eliminate the waste, and then go to the second step, which is the digitization?
Yeah, thank you. So with regard to the first question, it's more of a holistic approach rather than just the citizen itself. So we are looking into the organization, the digital experience, and then the individuals. And when it's come to the ownership, that's why we also test the citizen experience with regards to strategy and leadership. So with regard to strategy and leadership, do we actually have sort of that commitment toward this, or we don't have that commitment? So when it's come to ownership, we are able to map. So where is the ownership today, which actually lead to accountability. So we will know whether the likelihood, as I mentioned, the likelihood of that, for example, digital transformation to happen or not. With regard to the second question, the whole idea of experience management is the interaction. So we are trying to see how people actually interact with this specific thing. And is there any sort of successful models that actually can be replicated in other areas? But just going one level below, it varies from industry to industry. So when we look at a specific industry, because again, remember we have two things in each experience. We have the drivers and we have the outcome. Because when we, for example, work with oil and gas, the outcome for customer experience is not retention, is not recommendation. It's a different metric. So they don't use MPS in order to identify the customer experience. They use customer satisfaction. So it varies from industry to industry. But the bottom line is actually how to make sure that when it's come to the whole experience, the drivers are really relevant to the outcome of the business. And this is where we start. So we always start with a question, what do we need to have in place in order for the business to succeed? So then we translate that into experience. So how this experience need to be either, so when we are doing design, experience design, so actually we reach to a point we don't optimize the process, we eliminate the process. So with some, we are doing a project at the moment here with one of the OIA companies, and the first thing we agreed with the management that actually we will realign all of the processes with the selected system, and not vice versa. So it's zero customization. We are doing only extension. So if this sort of service or module it doesn't exist, we will extend it through integratability of the system. But we are not going to do any customization, and which is very challenging actually to carry through. Because people, they are very comfortable with certain things. We've been using this process since forever, and now you are eliminating the whole process. Because what we are telling them now, because of the technology that we are adapting, you don't need actually to do this. You don't need to validate. It's different level of governance. The system is actually driving that. So by introducing these new principles, the business started to see the value, because if there is no value, the business will not buy it. And this is always the challenge. But again, we are going into sector by sector, because the value proposition for each of the stakeholders is different. When it's come to specifically the digitization and why we are using this system, not anything else. And that's where we build the business case for it.
Yeah, from our experience, I think maybe it will be more effective that you start first with the process itself or the workflow, and then you build the system to accommodate it. Instead of you are bringing new system, and maybe you will end up that you need to come up with long process or unrequired process to fulfill with that system.
Yeah, just on that, so what we are doing is we actually identify all of the functional requirements, line by line. So for this specific company, we identified more than 3,000 lines of functional requirement, line by line. So what exactly the functionality that the system has to have. Then we went back to the market and we started scouting around the globe what are actually those systems which have these functionality as standards. And so we did the shortlisting based on that. But we did not go into the process itself. So the whole idea is not actually, okay, what's the workflow? Who's supposed to do this? But the idea is if there is input and output. So each process has input and output without going into the details. And we identify this as part of the functional requirement. So if this is the input, then this is the expected output by the end user. So without going into the process itself. Then we look into, okay, what are those systems that most actually have certain level of alignment, 80%, 90%, and so on. Based on that, we look, can that system be extended instead of customized? Can that system be extended? And to be honest with you, based on our experience, and we've been doing this for the past 10 years, based on our experience, there's always a system that actually, because as Mother said, we are not reinventing the wheel. 90% of the solutions are there. 90%. And now with the integration systems like Microsoft Azure and others, you actually can integrate any systems, from even with different platforms, different technical specification, because also we do the technical specification requirements. So we identify whether the system, for example, cloud, it's a service-oriented architecture or it's not. So all of this we also go and validate in order, and the third thing we validate as well is the total cost of ownership. So what is the total cost of ownership? How much it will cost us to actually invest in the system for the next 5 years? So we look into the functional requirement and we identify line by line what exactly is required. We scout the market in order to identify the shortlist. We recommend the systems, and then we look into at the same time, we also look into the technical specification, what exactly is required for this company or this organization. And finally, we look into the total cost of ownership. Because as you know, companies, when you compare, for example, even with ERP, Oracle versus SAP, it's a different model. Total cost of ownership is completely different. And these are some of the things we take in consideration when we look into the whole digital experience.
Thank you, Mr. Abdumajeed.